BTEC was established in 1991 through the National Council for Voluntary Organisations, and around 60 mostly black and Asian local organisations that at that time wanted a national voice and action research to be undertaken to influence public policy, particularly in relation to the training enterprise councils that were setting up at the time. And these were mainly local providers that were helping unemployed people into work and to start businesses. So that was how we started. And next year will be 30 years of BTEC being around. I've been there 29 years. So today we work with young people from around the age of 10 to 30, helping young people to realise their full potential in education, employment, entrepreneurship. We have a small volunteer army of black and Asian individuals that inspire young people and provide role modelling workshops and mentoring. And we also do a lot of work nationally still on the justice system and education outcomes. And we're just about to start a new initiative in London tackling kind of serious violence with young people, particularly young black males, and trying to make sure that they stay out of the justice system. Racism for me has always been where ethnic groups and black and minority ethnic individuals experience serious disadvantage in terms of opportunities, services. Obviously racism can be direct, it can be physical, it can be violent, it can result in death. So racism for me, in terms of my work, is trying to make sure that organisations, particularly public authorities and employers, do everything they can to minimise the unfairness in the workplace towards black and Asian communities in particular, but let's just say BAME communities, so that they can have fair opportunities, can realise their full potential, and actually can go about their daily lives free from fear of being verbally abused, physically abused, and can lead their lives and can feel safe and secure as British citizens. So obviously there's a global aspect to racism, and that's obviously important as well. What we try and do as an organisation is minimise, try and eradicate racism, try and remove unfairness, and make sure that we can be as harmonious as possible as a country that can thrive, and that every community, every individual can be who they want to be. Racism in some respects has become more subtle. It's often not easy to detect in the first instance. There's a lot of microaggressions where comments are made about people who are different for different reasons, and some of that may be unconscious, some of it may be conscious. And I think the whole language of unconscious bias is important, but I think we've got to remember that there are biases that are direct, and people can still make people feel uncomfortable and treat them less favourably just because of their colour of their skin, their sexual orientation, or their ethnicity. So whilst I think we're in some respects a different place than we were 20, 30 years ago in terms of racism, where there was direct discrimination more commonly, especially in terms of employment and housing. It's more subtle now. People have learned a language in which they can get the outcome they want and not be seen to be discriminatory. So I think that's a real issue, how we tackle that. I'm not sure legislation has moved with the times and is robust enough. And I still see, in terms of public organisations, major disparities in terms of ethnicity, especially in terms of senior opportunities and leadership roles. And that's really important that we do make sure that in terms of colour, gender and other areas, there's fairness and inclusivity. I think we just need to be clear what we all mean by inclusivity. For me, that means seeing people from all backgrounds at all levels in an organisation. We've always encouraged people to be respectful, frank and honest. We can all say we've got some biases, so no one's going to be perfect, but we need to be able to speak about inequality and race and ethnicity and other things, and understand what the issues are and then find the solutions to them. But if we're afraid to speak about ethnicity and colour, and if we can't say that's a black person or that's a white person or whatever you want to use to describe someone, you've got to be able to speak to that person to say, well, how do you like to be described? And I think obviously in terms of dealing with inequalities, you've got to categorise people in some shape or form. And I appreciate people don't like labels. Some of those labels are problematic. People are trying to find a space where they feel they can identify with something and they can talk about it and feel that it embraces them. But I suppose the diversity we have now in this country is very much more deeper than it was 20, 30 years ago. So we've got to be a bit more nuanced, a bit more intelligent about how we talk about diversity, especially ethnicity. Of course, the majority population is white, and we've got to make sure that they are part of the solution as well as the conversation. I think we've just got to make sure that we're all part of the conversation and that we're not in a silo making decisions that don't actually impact on mainstream outcomes. I was born and raised in Walsall, in the West Midlands, and in the 70s and early 80s you could not get a job, even in the supermarket, if you were black. So there was a lot of overt discrimination. And I think, for me, I've always found talking to family, close people about your experiences is really important. You've got to share how you deal with racism, because I think if you internalise it, it does become a real burden. And I've spoken to many people over the years who've tried to deal with racism in the workplace and taken their employers to tribunals, and it is very stressful and it takes its toll, not to mention being physically attacked by someone. So I do think you need support, which is why I think and I believe strongly that we do need community organisations to support people and provide guidance and strength and direction. Not only legal support, but mental health, well-being. It's really important, and I think unless you've experienced racism in that way, it's really quite hard to communicate to people what it really feels like. That rejection, that hurt, and the trauma it causes. And we speak to quite a lot of young people, and they really do feel the impact of negative stereotypes. They can feel the way an employer looks at them when they go for an interview, the way they talk to, and they see in the media the portrayal of, for example, young black men as kind of drug dealers, violent, thuggish. And it really impacts on them, and I don't think we really understand the impact it has. We've got to give young people, as well as old people, the space to talk, because the young people are walking around with these feelings which are real, and unless the older people are listening to them and encouraging them to talk about them, I think we're kind of building up a generation that's going to be very frustrated with the lack of understanding and opportunity. I think individuals need to be supported and need to work in groups and be able to join and feel that they can participate in trying to kind of tackle these problems. We obviously need a justice system that can deal with hate crime effectively and that listens to people who are victims of hate crime. I'd like to think in Nottingham, with all the work that you've been doing as an organisation and the community, that it's more understood, that public authorities and the police and the legal system can deal with it better, and we get remedies, and that people who are perpetrating these crimes can be shown to be punished properly. Individuals need to know where they can go to get that support and help, and we all want to see as a community that we are dealing with these problems properly. We definitely need allies, and we need the whole community and those who are committed and understand they want to be part of a community that's fair and inclusive. So they can't turn a blind eye, I don't think. They need to stand up, support things, join things, and use their voice wherever that voice can be heard, whether it's in faith organisations, in the council, in the police, everywhere. So I think we do need to be vocal. Don't be silent. Stand up, do what you can. There's help in the community, I think, to tell you what you could do that's going to be helpful, and seek that help and contribute. Race is a difficult issue to really always have a good answer and a strong answer. It can be very complex, and everyone's got a view about race if they're really honest about it. I think we've got to be careful that we can see across Europe a growing prevalence of racism, overt racism. We look to politicians to kind of set the tone, and morally and politically, as well as faith organisations, and I think we've got to make sure that faith and politics has a better understanding about what's right and what's wrong, and that we as a society really stand up and set out what our values are and what we expect from people in terms of behaviour on an everyday basis.